Hello everyone. In this session, we are going to discuss about the phylum Protozoa of the paper 1 animal diversity, that is non-chordates. So already we have discussed about the general characteristics of Protozoa. So in this session, mainly we will concentrate on the classification of Protozoans belonging to different subphylums and up to their classes. So in classification of phylum Protozoans, so you have already studied about some examples in your lower classes as amoeba, paramecium, euglena, etc. So at least you will be familiar with these three examples. So let's begin with the classification. So in classification, as you can see in this chart, so the phylum Protozoans, they are divided into subphylum into 4 different categories, that is subphylum Sarcomastigophora, Sporozoa, Nidophora and Coeliophora. So these are the 4 subphylums. So under the Sarcomastigophora, one superclass, that is you will be having Mastigophora. So in Sporozoa, there is no superclasses, and same as with the Nidophora and that is Coeliophora also. So under the class, that is the subphylum Sarcomastigophora, you will be having class, that is Phytomastigophora, Zoomastigophora, Rhizopodiae and Pleuroplasmiae and Actinopodiae. And under the Sporozoa, you are having classes of Teleospora, Taxoplasmiae, Haplosporiae. So these are the 3 classes which come under the Sporozoa. And next, the 2 classes under the subphylum Nidospora, that is Myxosporidae and Microsporidae. So these are the 2 classes that comes under the Nidophora. And under Coeliophora will be having Ciliata. So don't get confused just by seeing this chart. We'll see one by one in detail. So you need to study only about the classes. So don't go under the impression of studying the subphylum and again their different types of order. So you will be studying about the subphylum only in the general categories, but not as in detail. So you need to study the classes in detail. So let's begin with the first subphylum. So before that, the phylum Protozoa, it is the large and varied group of phylum, and here the classification is mainly done on the basis of Hyman. He was the first person, and Hickman and later the Storer. They were the people who differentiated this phylum Protozoa on their organ of locomotion basis, that is organ of locomotion. So we have 5 different classes. So later on it was modified. Before that we'll see what are those 5 different classes. So the first subphylum, that is Plasmodorma. So under the Plasmodorma, the locomotory organelles, it may be flagella, pseudopodia, or it may be absent also, and nuclei will be of only one type. So you might have studied in the euglena, you will be having 2 different types of nuclei, but here only single type of nuclei will be present. So under the subphylum, you will be having class, that is Mastigophora. So Mastigophora, they move by one or many different types of flagella. So flagella is the one type of locomotory organ, for example euglena, so which you can see under the euglena. So class Sarconidae, so they usually move and capture the food by using pseudopodia. So example will be amoeba. So you know the pseudopodia, mainly it helps in the capturing of food and also engulf by making a contractile vacuole formation. So that will be the characteristics of this class Sarconida. Coming to class 3, that is Sporozoa. So here the locomotory organs are absent and they all are parasitic form, and main important characteristic is the spore formation will be common. So usually the spore formation is type of reproductive action, asexual type of reproductive action. So there are types like sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction, but spore formation it may take place by asexual form, but later on they mature and undergo reproduction, that is under the sexual reproduction. So example is plasmodium. So you are familiar with the word plasmodium. So plasmodium is nothing but a parasite that usually enters the female Anopheles mosquito and later cause the malaria. So plasmodium is a vector. We usually tell it as a vector. So next subphylum, that is Plasmoderma. Under that we'll be having class 4, that is Ciliata. So locomotory organs are cilia or sucking tentacles. So cilia, where you can find, so you already known about the paramecium now. So paramecium, they usually move with the help of cilia. So these paramecium, they belong to the class Ciliata. Next class 5, that is Suctoria. So Suctoria is nothing but they usually suck the blood or suck the sap by using the suckers. So they move with the cilia in the young stage, but in the adult stage they move by the tentacles. So these tentacles, they are somewhat act as suctorials, so that they can suck the food sap or the blood also. So example is Podophyra. So these are the 5 classes which are classified by the Hyman and their group. So next, so now another group of taxonomists, they were Hohenberg and the other group. So in 1964, they divided into 4 subphylum. So we are sticking to this now. So till now that is the general introduction. So these are the 4 subphylums, that is subphylum 1 Sarcomastigophora, 2 Sporozoa, 3rd Nidospora, 4th Celiospora. So same classification, but there are some modifications in their general characteristics and their variation. So let's begin in detail about the first subphylum, Sarcomastigophora. So subphylum Sarcomastigophora, you can see the locomotory organelles are pseudopodia or flagella. So in the Euglena, the first picture, the large elongated flagella which helps in their locomotion, and nucleus will be of single type, monomorphic nucleus. So if this nucleus is of single type, then it is called as monomorphic nucleus, and there is no spore formation usually. So there will be no spore formation, but the reproduction will take place, but syngamous condition or syngamy occurs in the reproduction. So what is the syngamous condition? So usually in syngamous condition what happens? The union of nuclei of 2 gametes, they produce the zygote nucleus. So that leads to fertilization. So that is called as syngamy. So in under that, the Sarcomastigophora, the first superclass is Mastigophora. So usually they are commonly called as flagellates because they possess flagella, and locomotory organelles are flagella in adults, but the body is covered with the pellicel. So pellicel is nothing but the external, the outer cover which is seen in their body, and binary fission it takes place longitudinally, and they are mostly free living forms and some are parasitic, and nutrition is both autotrophic or the heterotrophic, or usually both you can tell. So they prepare their own food or they may depend on others also. So under that class Phytomastigophora, as the name itself tells, the phyto means they are somewhat related to plants now. So they will be having chlorophyll. So usually they have chlorophyll, and these chlorophyll consist of chromatophores, means the colored pigments, you can tell the chromatophores will be present, and nutrition mainly it is holophytic. So holophytic means it is mainly depending on the light now. So usually you can tell it as phototrophy also. And reserve food material is starch, because as they are belonging to the related to plants now, so the starch will be the reserve food material. And they have usually 1 or 2 flagellas for their locomotion, and nucleus will be vascular in nature. So this is about the Phytomastigophora. So coming to class 2, that is Zoomastigophora. So now zoo means what? They are related to animals now. So there will be no chlorophyll. So chlorophyll will be absent and they are mostly parasitic forms, and reserve food material will be glycogen, because in human beings also, if you take related to animals, so as I said Zoomastigophora, so glucose will be maximum present. So glycogen, remember the name, glycogen will be the reserve food, and flagella, it may be one or many, and they are having there is a undulating membranes. Usually they help in different types of characteristics also. So this is about the class 2 Zoomastigophora. So coming to their superclass, so no need to study about the superclass, just study till their classes. So just I have made a note on the open liata. So they are numerous ciliate members. So usually they are having cilia. There is no cytostome. Usually here they will be having 2 or more monomorphic nucleus. So there only one type of nucleus and only one nucleus. But here 2 nucleus, but they are of same size here. Monomorphic. They are not dimorphic. Dimorphic means maybe the size is different or the function may be different. But here as they are telling, it will be monomorphic. And binary fission, it is interkinatal. So what is this interkinatal? So interkinatal is nothing but it is related to interkinesis. So usually what happens, binary fission is interkinatal, and syngamous with the flagellated. Already I have mentioned about what do you mean by syngamy. And usually they all are parasite. So mainly in frogs and toads these are present, as they are living in water, the amphibians. So these parasitic forms of the protozoan, they tend to enter into the frogs. So these are the examples. And the one more superclass, that is Sarconida. Locomotory organelles are pseudopodia, and you know the example, that is amoeba, and they are having the hard shell. So usually the hard shell will be present and they generally do not form spores. And the formation of gametes and flagellated body, the young ones are common. And nutrition is holozoic or saprozoic. So this is the superclass. And coming to that classes now. So class 1, that is Rhizopodiae. Locomotory organelles are pseudopodia. So and they are generally creeping form because they don't have any type of locomotory organelles, hence they tend to move with the pseudopodia. Class 2, Actinopodiae. So here the pseudopodia mainly the axopodial with the axial filament. So usually they are having the spherical body, and the primary sessile, and later they form the floating form. So primarily once they take birth or when they are young, they are attached to the substratum, and later they become the floating form. And gametes are usually flagellated because just they have to move from one place to another form during the fusion. So that is how the gametes are flagellated, and reproduction, it takes place by sexual and asexual. And next class 3, that is Pleuroplasmae. These pleuroplasmal animals, they are small, round shaped, amoeboid parasites in vertebrates. So usually you can find these in RBC, that is red blood cells. So example will be Babesia. So these are the examples which I have noted. So just make a note that you will be knowing the structure of each protozoan. For example, maybe the amoeba, maybe euglena, and the paramecium. So they can ask for your examination. So those 3 diagrams with their explanation will be important. So next, coming to subphylum, that is Porozoa. So here the locomotory organelles are absent, and spores, they are usually present. So that is why the name Sporozoa. And they are exclusively endoparasite, means they are mainly present within the body, and cilia and flagella are mainly present, and hence they help in the gamete movement also. They are syngamous, The spores are simple and they also contain sporozoites. So these sporozoites, they mature to become larger spores and tend to reproduce. So nucleus is of only one type, so then you can call it as mononucleate or single type. So under that class you will be having Telosporiae. So pseudopodial, generally they are absent. Locomotion, it takes place by gliding. Spores are formed and flagellated microgametes. So remember the name microgametes. Means the spores which are formed, they act as the microgametes. So gametes is nothing but which helps in the reproduction. And these spores are without the polar capsules and filaments, and they are naked and encysted. So naked spores means they are opened up so that they will be having tendency to reproduce. And reproduction, it takes place by both sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. So next class, Toxoplasmae. So here the spores are absent and they do not have the flagella and pseudopodia, but the reproduction is of asexual type, that is binary fission. And cyst will be formed, mainly they are naked types. So examples are the Toxoplasmae. So that will be the example. Toxoplasma is the example. Next, coming to class Haplosporiae. So here spores are present. Pseudopodia, maybe it will be present, but flagellas are absent. And reproduction, it takes place only by asexual method. And schizogony takes place. So what is this schizogony? So schizogony is nothing but it is a type of asexual reproduction. So usually it is seen in protozoans. So what happens? The daughter cells, they are going to divide in the form of asexual multiple fission. So that is called as schizogony. So these are the examples of the schizogoniums. Examples related to the paramecium you are having, amoeba. So I have noted some of the examples. So please refer some of the textbooks for the correct example with their and the drawing purpose also. So coming to subphylum 3, that is Nidospora. So in the name itself we are having, they usually contains spores, and these spores, they are having one or more polar filaments. So spores are not exactly round in shape. They are somewhat pointed at the edge. So they usually are sarcoplasms or sporoplasms. All are parasitic forms, and the zygote usually give rise to more trophozoites. So that is the about the phylum Nidospora. So under that class Myxosporidae. So Myxosporidae, in the name itself we will be having myxo means more than one type of spores, and these are the parasites which are seen in the fishes, and they are multicellular in origin and they are much larger. So example will be the Myxobolus, and they are having Ceratomexa. So these are the examples. Coming to class Microsporidae. So they are unicellular in origin and they are smaller, and they have one long tubular polar filament, and that tubular filament sporoplasm will be emerging from that. And there is intracellular parasites also. They are cytozoic. Example is Nosema. So this is the last subphylum, that is Coleophora. So they possess simple ciliary organelles and they have two nuclei, that is trophic macronucleus and reproductive micronucleus. And binary fission, it takes place by prekinatal. So there it was interkinatal, but here prekinatal. So after the interphase. So conjugation takes place with the fusion of nuclei, and they are autogamous condition and cytogamous condition. So they also are free gametes, and nutrition is mixotrophic, and they usually have the cytostome. So let's see the class So class Ciliata is only one class belonging to the subphylum. So they possess cilia, compound ciliary structure, and locomotory organs. They are the cilia. So usually that cilia, what they do, they help in food, capturing the food also. And these are the main structures which also help in the movement, and later there is a presence of a type of system near to the basal granules of the cell surface. So that system is called as infraciliary system. And most ciliate possess cell mouth, that is cytostome, means which helps in the taking the food. Anal aperture is permanent and it is premature during the juvenile and it will mature in the adult stage. And there are two types of nucleus. One is vegetative, that is macro, reproductive, micro. Fission is transverse, sexual reproduction takes place and that will be involving formation of gametes and one or more contractile vacuole present even when they are mainly marine and parasitic form. So this is about the classification of the protozoans. So just remember how the ciliates are mainly present and what type of different types of classes, and the subphylum are important but don't go till order level. So till class level you need to study. So now when you see this chart will be simple. As you can see, you have studied the Sarcomastigophora, Sporozoa, Nidospora and Celiospora. Under that you have concentrate about the classes also. So that's all about this session. Thank you.